Welcome to Binge Theory, the coolest corner on the internet. I am Julian, and today with me we have Logan.
Hello.
And we have Eric.
Hello.
And this is the Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 15, Chapter... No, wait, did I do that right? Is it...
Nope. Season 2, Episode 7, Chapter 15.
It's insane. It's like I'm reading off coordinates.
They keep it simple.
Yes. So, exactly. Season 2, Episodes 7, Chapter 15. Right? We'll go with it. This is it's a Mandalorian episode. You'll enjoy it. Okay, gentlemen, this one is titled The Believer. And this, in a nutshell, is when, we're on our journey to basically try and track down Moff Gideon, as it was discussed in the last week's episode. Right off the bat, guys, what do you think about this episode? Is it filler? Is it story? Is it story progressive? Is it regressive? Is what are your overall thoughts right off the top of this episode?
I mean, I definitely thought it was not filler, not compared to some of the other ones earlier, and I thought it definitely. It was somewhat of a side quest, sort of, but I really like seeing just in how 2 short episodes they've developed Bill Burr's character so significantly for how little he's been on the grand scheme of the show. So seeing him again and a little bit more interaction with essentially Boba Fett as a glorified pilot. I mean, I'm not sure what else he really did besides say, the Empire might recognize my face and I'll fly the ship for you. So there wasn't much there. But no, it was definitely good seeing Bill Burr more. I think it was really, really crucial setting up exactly what lengths Mando will go through in order to save the child. And I think if nothing else, that was the whole crux of what the point was of this episode is there anything he won't do to get the child back? And I think he answered that with a resounding no.
Eric, I'll let you go because I definitely have thoughts on that.
Boy, that is about the best description I could possibly think of. I mean, I think him taking his helmet off for such a long period of time, I think that kind of let the audience connect with him a little bit more, have a little bit more of a connection now that you see the guy's face for such a long period of time. I really enjoyed that. I also like the kind of the train heist scene, if you will, since I'm always tying it back to Westerns and that sort of thing. So, I wouldn't put it all the way in the filler section. I would definitely say that it was a relevant episode. There's a reason to have it there. It progresses the story, and it gets you, moving into episode 8. So I approved, and it was not completely a filler episode.
I think you're right. And Logan, again, you I don't have the graphic ready, but we'll just imagine a nail being hit on the head with a hammer.
Yeah.
It is definitely a side quest, and to Eric's point, it did have that trope of the train heist. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna just say those aliens did look kind of indigenous to me, if you will. It looked kind of like what was that, Avatar? It's basically let's take some Native Americans and we'll just change their species, but they're still Native Americans at the end of the day. Fine. I did like the perspective shift, how they said, okay, this is how things look from the Empire aspect, where they're mining and they get onto base and it's just guys, they're praising Mandalorian for making the run, because nobody's been able to make the run because the tribe people have been, decimating their convoys. I appreciated that they were like just guys cheering on their own. I think they because the short story was short, it didn't really go into that in depth. They never really gave you any humanization of the crew other than, they were all cheering in the landing bay. So there was that. I do want to give a shout out to Richard Brake, who was the and you've seen him in other featured films. He always plays a smarmy, kind of a dark character. He has like and I hate to say it, the ratty teeth and the slick back blonde hair.
Well, he was the Night King on Game of Thrones too, wasn't he?
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. What I know him from is Mandy. He was in Mandy. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
The Nicolas Cage movie. Yeah.
Yeah. You saw that, Logan?
I haven't seen it, but it's on a list. It's on a list.
I don't know, Logan. Listen. Again, you're a cinematic, savant. You appreciate film. I think this one's a little edgy. Not that you can't handle it, but it's just, we'll see. If you do see that, I would definitely like your take on it. It is an amazing film. I liked it, but I have very unique taste in that. He was also in a music video. Not to go too off the track here, but he was in a music video by Muse. They came out with about maybe 8 years ago called Knights of Sidonia. Really interesting one. It was kind of like a space western. Go figure. And he played a kind of like an outlaw henchman type of a deal. But he's typecast. He plays the smarmy character, and of course he was tailor-made for this. And to the point about the Mandalorian taking off his helmet, because there is no lengths in which he will not go to get Baby Yoda, and even forsaking his creed and his religion, it just doesn't matter, because there was no hesitation. He said, Now I'm gonna go by I'm a little curious about this science about how you have to have a facial scan to see things, especially if your face is not in the register. What's the point of a face scan? I mean, but again, it was speeding it to the point where we realize he will sacrifice everything for this child, and I appreciated that, and also the gunfight scenes with Gina Carano's character, Cara Dune, and Fennec, when they're it's one of those strong woman meet strong woman, and they appreciate each other's skills on the battlefield. So I definitely dug that. Let me pitch it back to you guys. What did you think of? And again, you mentioned Bill Burr before, Logan, forgive me. And what was your thoughts on Bill Burr's acting? Because he's been in some films, some interesting films and series. His character is so Boston, though. I can never really get that out of my head. And he's a wisecracker, and he's a comedian. He's a comedic actor. And he was obviously, that's his whole thing, is he's the wisecracking guy. But what do you think about his character? I'm just curious, Logan.
Yeah, no, I like it. I really do. I mean, especially that whole kind of a heavy Boston type feel to it. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, and I'm much more of a, New York, New Jersey kind of guy. So to think that there is a second center of, scum and villainy out there somewhere that's Boston-like, that's not just Tatooine, is it's kind of heartwarming. I like that, actually. So, I think that's it's fun. It adds some nuance. It helps to perpetuate that there's a more nuance to the galaxy than just the few people or the few core planets or the few general things that we've seen that they just keep rehashing over and over and over again. So showing more of those depths and stuff, I think is helpful to just grow the feeling of the universe. And I don't know how much he was given to work with on the page, but he certainly seems to be making the most of it. And to just watch him visibly and physically seethe when the general starts talking about, having to just, make the hard calls, and they sacrifice their lives for the glory. And it wasn't a matter of if he was going to pop. It was just a matter of when. And to see that so viscerally, I've said it, I don't know if it's on this podcast before, but I know I've said it to you in person before, Julian. Take a comedic actor and put them in a serious role, or put them in an emotional role, or a role that doesn't rely on the comedy, and just watch them shine. And the depth that having that comedic ability brings to everything else just is so routinely unparalleled. I love it.
And I want to go back to you. First of all, I can totally imagine, a crowd of wicked, townies, and say, hey, look out for that Sarlacc pit, wicked, and yeah, that's the extent of my Boston dialects. But yeah, I could definitely picture a Good Will Hunting, in Dagobah.
Oh yes,
But to your point about comedic
actors, there's a Star Wars fan film that needs to be made if I ever heard one.
I'm sure Saturday Night Live is working on it right now. I could definitely get your gist in regards to comedic actors who, as a living, do like an exaggerated sense of self. So to just dial that back and communicate, that on a because they're essentially like Broadway actors. They're basically, portraying a character. And I think that gives them the range to do something a little more focused and nuanced. And, Robin Williams, obviously a great dramatic actor. Jim Carrey has done some great dramatic work. And here's the one thing. I would compare Bill Barr, because they're of the same neighborhood, to Dennis Leary. And Dennis Leary has done some good dramatic roles. I'm not talking about Spider-Man. I'm talking about, he was in that. But he was in a film, I forget what it was called, but he played a real ground level kind of a towny guy. And he pulled it off remarkably well. And again, I knew Dennis Leary from his stand-up only, and not to date myself, but back in the days when he was on MTV doing like little bits called like rants, and he would just go on these, manic talking sprees. But Bill Burr, I did think held his own.
Yeah.
Eric, what were your thoughts on Bill Burr? Were you familiar with him other than this role? Like, have you seen him in other projects or comedies? Because I knew he was also in that recent movie, Staten Island, I think, with the cast member from Saturday Night Live. And
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson, thank you. Yeah.
I can't really place exactly where I've seen him before. But
he was in Chappelle's Show.
For many years, I was a fan of the Howard Stern show, and I'm sure Stern had him on there at one point or another. As far as comedic actors shining in dramatic roles, the thing that it might be is perhaps it's the confidence that they muster, because it takes to be a stand-up comedian would take a lot of self-confidence, a lot of failing, going up on stage, delivering, remarks and jokes that don't land, and you got to have a really strong like center core for that, and perhaps that's what helps them shine. In the dramatic, they've already been criticized every which way, had people boo them or whatever, So like they're at this point they're untouchable, and perhaps it's that confidence that allows them to shine. I really like his character. I mean, it does kind of dissolve the fantasy of the Mandalorian lore. It does kind of you kind of reminded of the Chowderhead, and like, oh, okay, so it does kind of pull you out of that a little bit. But he's definitely a character that I like watching. So for that, he succeeds.
And it was funny seeing him working as a basic, hard labor on a Russ Plant, like dismantling old discarded droids, and Gina Carano and Boba Fett, and again a much more underutilized Boba Fett. But yeah, and I have thoughts on that, because I was thinking, if you're going to bring back the legend Boba Fett, either use him or don't use him, but don't have him be a glorified Uber driver, to that point, and just, I'm going to drop you off. They'd recognize my face.
They did clean up his armor.
Yeah, they did. It looked shiny.
What about that? Shiny and new. I mean,
he just needs to do his ship now, and then he's all set.
Yeah. Well, and again, what's up with that? Because his armor was never that shiny. Did they just come out with a new version of Rust-Oleum or something? Because not only is it wasn't necessarily just shiny, it's like it had a fresh coat of paint on it. So I guess maybe now he's taking pride in it since he lost it. He did not fix that dent in his helmet though. I noticed that. And I do want to say there's one thing that I saw at the end of this episode that kind of upset me, because I thought it was very poorly written and I didn't think it made any sense. At the very end, when Moff Gideon gets the telecast from the Mandalorian, and he's like, you may think you know what you have, but that means more than me than can you possibly. At first I was like, why is he giving away his motives and showing his weak spot? Then I realized he was repeating what Moff Gideon had said in an early episode. I didn't realize that. I watched it a second time, and then it clicked in. I was like, oh, because that would be like the worst thing to say. This baby means so much to me. I'll basically, do anything to save it. You don't show your cards like that, but he was giving a clapback, as the kids say.
Yeah. Yeah. Although speaking of the child though too, I thought it was really interesting how not seeing Grogu on screen at all gave a little bit more of a sense of, is he okay? Where is he at? I'm a little concerned. What's going on? Like, there was no real way to work it into the story, but the fact that they didn't even shoehorn it in and you don't see him for the first time in the series, pretty much, on screen. Actually, no, I think the first time in the series you don't see him in an episode. That had a lot more of a foreboding feeling than I expected.
Good point. Yeah, you're right. It didn't keep chucking in to show him like they did when he got kidnapped the first time.
Exactly.
One of the things I do want to go back to with Bill Burr, and one of the things I saw coming, it was definitely a setup, but when he was talking to him in the transport about, hey, you do what you got to do, wicked. So, Bill Burr was setting that whole thing up where you're going to sacrifice something.
It hard.
It was a little on the nose, but after the Mandalorian did take off his mask and all that, and it all starts to shake out, Bill Burr looks at him, and I did also appreciate Pedro Pascal's almost, and this is one other thing I want to just go into. There was a movie I saw a couple of years ago starring Michael Fassbender. It was based on a true person. It was titled Frank. And there was actually a psychological condition where some people are so intensely shy that they end up wearing a mask or some sort of a prosthetic. It's a psychological thing. Not to go into it, but there was a movie called Frank starring Michael Fassbender. And the entire movie, he wore a huge ceramic head. And it was just, because again, Michael Fassbender, leading man, he has the goods, but he wore a mask until the very end where he took it off. And it was such a reveal when you see him take this thing off, because he's vulnerable. He is not, that's his shield. That is his identity. And the same thing I felt kind of like with the Mandalorian. And you saw that in Pedro Pascal's face where he was almost in shock, because having people see his face gave him that sense of vulnerability. Not so much the regret that he's going against his creed, because he was going to do that. We all knew that was coming, but the fact that nobody has laid eyes on him, it would probably be the same. Again, to use a horrible analogy, ending up in school with nothing but your underwear on. It's just a sense of like, not shame, but just this feeling of, I'm out of my element completely. I don't know how to react because I've never been in this situation. So I like how he conveyed that, because you can see it in his eyes. He's completely bewildered. and he can't even communicate well.
Yeah.
You see how he kind of shut down?
Oh yeah.
It was like this, it was almost like a psychological trauma he was going through, removing what was essentially a part of his identity. So I really appreciated that. And conversely, I appreciated it when Bill Burr understood what the Mandalorian had done. And he said, listen,
yes,
I didn't see you. Just you did what you had to do. I did not see you. And I thought that was a real character moment, not trying to hold it over his head or make a wisecrack. He was just, listen, like I was saying literally 10 minutes ago, you're going to have to do some things that you may regret, but you do it because you have to do it. So, but I did appreciate that. And Bill Burr's humanity that came through in that moment. Let's see. What else is there that I was really interested in? I did.
I mean, I kind of saw that as a little bit of a protecting his butt, Bill Burr. I mean,
because
you just don't know how somebody's going to react, like that Mandalorian when he's taking off his helmet and he's got somebody right next to him.
It would have been easier
don't know. I mean, who's going to take his head off when he gets outside? Who knows?
Again, of course, I'm going to do 6 Degrees of Separation. It reminded me of No Country for Old Men after Shigur had killed all the people in the office except for one. And he's like, are you going to kill me? And he goes, that depends. Right. Do you see me? So no, I'm with you 100%, Eric. It would have been
because we're still in the post-Empire era, right? This is a galaxy that is in chaos. There's some semblances of order, but it's the Wild West,
Exactly. These are like rogue factions that are. It's almost like after the Civil War ended, you still had Confederates out there that were trying to fight the last battle or whatever, or reclaim their. And again, a lot of these people had no other identity but the Empire. If they were. If they were kidnapped and raised as stormtroopers, where are you going to go from there? I don't think they have a LinkedIn, that they could have just, applied for some other job. But and actually, Logan, you probably know a little better. Where timeline wise, were these stormtroopers, were they the clones of Boba Fett?
That's what's interesting is that's what kind of confused me about this, and I was thinking about that through the episode, and I was wondering if you were going to bring it up, because so this is post Return of the Jedi time, which would mean it would be, I'm going to screw this math up, but probably 30 years after Attack of the Clones, give or take.
Well, yeah, and remember we did
because what I'm trying to figure out is why Bill Burr wouldn't recognize Boba Fett's face. How far removed is he as an Imperial soldier from the clone era, where they would have only been Boba Fett's face or Jango Fett's face, technically? But so if that's the case, yeah, I was I want to look into that a little bit closer just to figure out where and when exactly all of that is, because I don't know why Burr's character wouldn't have recognized Boba Fett, because he clearly didn't, or he didn't let on that he did.
Now, that actually may fill in some of the gaps to that statement that Boba Fett made about I can't show my face there. Is that because he's basically the first of many a stormtrooper? And
the Empire computer systems, I imagine, would have him in their database. He would be flagged either.
But they're all the same. They're all clones.
They're all clones, but he would still be easily flagged.
Oh, I guess so. I mean,
it's only one face. You got to go ahead and
flag them all.
Flag
somebody else goes. Yeah, somebody else goes and it's like, no, I'm not Boba Fett. I'm number 5026.
Yeah, but no, that's a great question, because I'm not exactly sure of all of the time in between there. So
yeah, well, I remember we did do the math on that maybe a last episode of the one before, because remember we were talking about how I think it was the last one, because I just pitched the idea that what would happen if Mace Windu came back, and he would be about 7 years old, given the math, because he killed Jango Fett when Boba Fett was like 10, and from I think what I heard is that this Boba Fett is supposed to be in his mid to late 40s, so that would have made Mace Windu like 70, at that point, because he was easily 30, 30s. So, the timelines are they're a little stretched, but they're not going into X-Men type timelines. It's
not yet.
Yeah, they're holding it together. And I still love seeing Boba Fett. It still gives me the feels, and with his shiny new armor. You're right. I'm surprised he took the time to shine up his armor, but never fixed that, the Slave One that he's been flying around for forever. And
did you have that ship when you were little, Julian? The Slave One?
I did. I did not have the large, the 1/8 scale. I had probably, like the little Matchbox one. And I do still have the Millennium Falcon. I still have that one, like the one where the action figures go into the actual.
Okay.
Yeah. I was cleaning out a garage last year, and I came across it. Still missing some pieces, but isn't the Millennium Falcon always missing some pieces? So, I still have that. Don't know where any of the action figures are, but it is what it is. That was a time long gone, but I appreciated seeing Slave One more than I thought, because Slave One is such a unique looking ship. And again, back when these ships were being created, you got to understand, spaceships were either discs or rockets. The whole character of a ship was like thruster, and then it always came to a point. You did get some variants in ships with like what's that series, Logan? 1919. 1919. It was like an old series before Battlestar Galactica. Way back in the day. But to that point, Battlestar Galactica, a very iconic ship. The fighters, very iconic. And again, not to date myself, but I remember when the toys came out and kids were putting their eyes out because there was literally a projectile that would shoot out of the front of it, and apparently kids didn't know not to point stuff in their eyes and shoot.
Good times.
Exactly. That and lawn darts. You couldn't do any wrong. But the Star Wars ships were so unique and identifiable and iconic. The Millennium Falcon, I mean, that thing just looked insane. I mean, to have a side-mounted cockpit, I'd never seen that before, because everything was always, forward front. And to see something like that and have like this weird shape to it. And Slave One, when you first saw that in Empire Strikes Back in Cloud City, and how it lays on its back and then it comes up and it goes sideways, it just, not that it defied aerodynamics, but it was so functional and less stylistic. And I that's the one thing I always appreciated. TIE fighters, again, iconic. All these ships jump out at you. Not so much the ones in the prequels. A lot of those ones looked a little more generic in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it could just been that they spent a lot more time and effort, and there were less ships apparently back in the episodes 4, 5, and 6 that they had to really focus on. But you see the ship, and it brings back everything based on those memories. Even in Cloud City with those co-pilot, the red ships, that looked odd, but they're reminiscent of Cloud City. So I don't know how we got off on that. Oh yes, I did have the action figure, Eric. Thank you. Did anybody else collect Star Wars figures, or am I the only cool guy on this podcast?
I have an extensive Star Trek set.
Oh, Star Trek. Oh, that's right. Logan was more of a Trekkie.
Believe it or not, yeah.
And Eric, what did you have? Were you a Galactic Star, a Trekkie, a Star Wars? What was your go-to?
I was never a Trekkie, but I appreciated the original Star Trek with Shatner and Spock. I really appreciated that. I just never really got into it, like in the modern era. Star Wars, definitely. I definitely had a bunch of action figures. I remember I had Endor. That was a prized possession of a heap of plastic. Those, I don't think I ever had like a TIE fighter. But those was some good times, simpler times.
Yeah, I mean, and I do recall that George Lucas was an insane genius for getting the property rights to all of the toys. So he might have made a couple of bucks, basically, having the rights to all the actual merchandising for Star Wars. Because I think there was a little bit of merchandising that went on with Star Wars. But 1919. You might want to look that up, Logan, because that one was of its time, and it did have a very unique ship. The ship almost reminded me of something out of 2001, A Space Odyssey. Very, very unique look. And again, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the interwebs here.
Yeah, that's not familiar. There was a Space 1999. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
What did I say?
You said 1919.
Oh, 1999. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
That's the one. Yeah. And in that one, I actually had that figure a long time ago, that spaceship. And it was unique. It literally looks just like a moon landing ship. It's not no frills. It looks more functional than stylistic. But again, that was our projection of space. And
yep. One of the first ships with feet.
Yes, exactly. It actually, and that's and again, I'm playing of course the science expert here based on no credentials. But did you notice that Boba Fett's ship has no landing gear whatsoever? It just literally falls on its butt when it lands. Like there's no feet that come out, and I've seen it land several times where it just goes and just lays back.
Right.
Though, if you want to play scientist, from what I've heard, most of the ships that do have the feet don't have substantial enough feet to actually support the weight of the ship. So,
no, I don't want to.
In some ways, his ship might have the best shot of actually.
It's just one big foot. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yeah. You can structurally design that. Some of these feet, I remember that was the biggest problem with Serenity, is that those little chicken feet on that ship ain't gonna cut it.
No, yeah, and especially with a lot of the rough landings they're doing, and the landing gear seems to just stay on for some reason. I don't know. Again, it's such a good thing that this is science fiction and not NASA or SpaceX. Because we'd be constantly in the red. With ships like that. So, gentlemen, where do you think we're going in episode 8?
I have a feeling we might see Moff Gideon. It's just a hunch. I'm not sure, but I think we might see Moff Gideon.
Eric, what are your projections of episode 8? I'm taking notes here.
Okay, I'm going to just put a wild guess out there, and I kind of hope I'm wrong, but I'm imagining the Grogu with a little lightsaber. Somehow he's going to get some kind of little, pint-sized lightsaber. I think that would be so cool.
Like a butter knife lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Like a switchblade almost,
Yeah. I could see Grogu shanking somebody. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I thoroughly enjoyed this series, as it progressed. And then again, it is episodic, so they have these small little beats, but they are keeping an eye on the prize, if you will, where we start at a certain point and we know it's all coming to this conclusion, which would be, episode 8, chapter 16.
16, yep.
Season 2. Disney Plus. Yes, all of these identifier things. Yeah. I believe this is going to be one of the most iconic series out there. Along the lines with like Lost and Breaking Bad. You will have this cult following, I think. What do you guys think? Do you think this is not just a money grab or something like that? Or?
I don't know. I think it's hard to say right now because it's the first. I mean, Disney has 10 more Star Wars shows coming, let alone movies and other stuff. I mean, I don't want to, throw shade on The Mandalorian just because it was first, but I also don't want to put it on too high of a pedestal also because it was first. So trying to take some kind of balance with it. And I mean, you know me, there's an Ahsoka series coming out, so it's going to be hard to top that one, and I haven't even seen it yet. Just because of the love I have for that character in particular. So, getting a series of known characters, getting a known Ahsoka series, a Boba Fett series, perhaps an Obi-Wan series. You're drawing on the nostalgia of some of these titular characters, and how that's going to, compare when you're at an apples to apples point with this show. I think I mean, Star Wars has lived in nostalgia for 30, 40 years. It's going to be hard to not have that play a significant role when you're retroactively assessing all of these series as they actually exist.
True. I do think that thanks to the creative minds that have put together the Marvel series, which is also a Disney property, I think they will make this work. I think they will make it fit. I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi will fit. The timelines will fit. The crossovers will happen. Maybe they won't be so egregious where it's like in your face. Ahsoka, which I know very little about. I'm very interested in seeing that storyline. I think, Eric, you already also mentioned that, when you see these, it kind of triggers something in you to want to explore that realm of this Star Wars universe. So what are your thoughts? Do you think going forward with the spinoffs, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, possibly Boba Fett, is that something that you're excited about, or do you think it's like the proverbial money grab?
Oh boy. I hate to be negative. But first of all, let me just put this out there. Like, this is nowhere near Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was a very well crafted arc from beginning to end. I've never seen anything like it. So that I hold that show in very high regard, and partly because of the great acting. So okay, Mandalorian. Future Disney releases, I'm getting a little burned out on it. I like The Mandalorian because it's kind of, when it came out, I felt like it was a self-contained thing, something I could put in a lunchbox, take with me, enjoy it, and leave it. I don't have any confidence in Disney bringing some kind of universe together. I'm sorry, I just don't. They don't have the kind of decades of experience that Marvel Comics does with tying continuity together, using editors to make sure that the stories that get published are in line with the overarching themes of the galaxy, and this character would never do that, and just that sort of big. That's a big planning type thing, and I'm sorry, I don't have any confidence based on their trilogy that they put out. I'm sorry. I'm just no. Yes, the wrong guy.
No. Actually, that brings up an excellent point. And Logan, I'd like to go to you on this because
sure,
it also has to deal with studios, and I want to make sure that I'm correct because obviously Lucas Limited episodes 4, 5, and 6
Right.
its own property altogether.
Right.
Were the prequels under Disney, or were they still under Lucas? Because I forget when Disney bought out Lucas Limited.
They bought out Lucas in 2016, I think.
Okay. So that was after the prequel.
prequel.
I think it was after the prequels. Yes.
So the prequels that was all Lucas. That was his abomination.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
That's
on him.
And because
I'm sorry. It was 2012. 2012 was when Disney bought Lucasfilm.
Okay, but that was still after the prequels.
That was still after the prequels.
Yeah.
It was still well after the prequels.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's interesting. I wholeheartedly agree with your relating that to the recent trilogy. I do think there was plenty of unevenness and a lack of cohesiveness, there. They tried to both stretch the boundaries of what the movie's universe was and be faithful to it, and they couldn't do both, and they didn't pull it off. No argument there at all. However, as I think we've mentioned in the past here, what not Dave Filoni, what Jon Favreau has learned from his time in Marvel with Kevin Feige and others, and the fact that the TV properties are, nobody's inside Disney here, so we don't really know, but arguably a lot less controlled by the same executives at Star Wars that controlled the movies. I tend to have a little bit more hope there, because they did absorb the Lucas comics that do have that kind of continuity. They do have the let's walk over to the Marvel stage and go talk to my buddy Kevin or whoever else that way. And I think this is in some ways, Jon Favreau's ability to prove that he can kind of do it too, and that Kevin Feige isn't their only one-trick pony. Because they've basically put out at their investor preview that they have The Mandalorian now, and then Ahsoka and whatever this Rangers of the New Republic that we know nothing about series is, that they're already planning to culminate in a shared universe, to go back to the Netflix Marvel Defenders type story. They're already building for all of that, and they have that Marvel pedigree, which I think they're able to lean on a lot heavier than if they were trying to do individually interconnected movies and then do a connected movie after that. So I have, I think, a little bit more hope, perhaps, that they'll be able to pull it off admirably rather than spectacularly crash and burn.
And if I can dovetail on that, Eric, I definitely get your skepticism, because Disney is not, or was not, a multiple story culminating into one larger story machine. I do think, I think Logan pointed out the obvious difference is Favreau. When Favreau came into the Disney family, and he, working in that MCU, and him being just a huge student of film. I mean, remember, we're talking about the guy that put together Swingers. So he can do storytelling. And I think he's bringing that not only drive and connectivity and just skill set, but also the understanding of how it's done. I think the only thing we need to worry about, to Logan's point, is who's going to be at the helm, who's going to be making all the decisions, because you're going to have one person making these choices. If you have a committee, it's done.
A committee, no, but I would argue if it is Favreau and Filoni, because Dave Filoni had 7 seasons roughly of the Clone Wars, which led into now 2 spin-offs, both Star Wars Rebels and the upcoming Bad Batch, which were all kind of integrated in and introduced through. I mean, he has nearly a decade now involved in kind of building that world and characters and introducing, stories that can stand on their own. So if any of the rumors are true that, they are being looked at to kind of get the keys to the kingdom, that's my money for the best place to give them to.
Yeah, I think I'll be looking at the future productions from different angles. Obviously I have a lot of very nostalgic investment in the original Star Wars with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. So that ship has sailed for me. I'm not expecting to get any more nostalgia from the past anymore. At this point, I'm interested to see what they can do. I'm very happy with what I see as far as the special effects with the ships. The way they pull that off is beautiful. And then just some of the nods to cinema that I see, I enjoy that. So I guess I just have to maybe refocus my lens and when I'm looking at the future productions.
Well, and again, let's be frank, and I hate to point out the obvious, but we are not the 1980s version of ourselves. So even though we do have the nostalgia and we've seen things that are a cornerstone to our overall cinematic experience on our iconic view of this property, we're probably not going to get the same, endorphin rush when we see things unless it's something that we identify with in the past. Now, of course, when Logan's talking about Ahsoka, he has a vested interest in that. Me, not so much. I had a vested interest in Rosario Dawson, so that got me going. And I think if they're able to do that, where they're able to get like the actors that you want to see in these roles, maybe they can marry the two and give you that. Well, yeah, maybe you don't know this character, but here's an actor you love playing that character, and it kind of will. Again, I hate to say, but all of these properties are either going for an audience much younger than us, or they're trying to just give us that little sugar rush to keep us in the game, to still, so we can take our kids and in some cases our grandkids to go see these movies and still get something out of it.
Because as much as I am critical of Star Wars, Rogue One, I thought, was a fantastic compliment to the nostalgia of Star Wars. They took a subject that we all wanted to know about, and they put it into a nice little pill, and they gave it to us, and I really appreciated that. So,
absolutely.
That nod.
Did you like how they bled into Episode 4? At the tail end of
yes. Oh my gosh,
it was perfectly done.
Yeah.
And if you want to see examples of how to do that badly, there's a lot of Star Trek that tries to retcon in little holes in past timelines that just does it so well.
Really?
Well, Star Trek has so many more TV series, so there's so much more established history there. It's so hard to shoehorn things in, which was my fear actually when I went to go see Rogue One, was that coming from more letdowns than successes with that kind of a thing, I wasn't sure. But no, I think you're totally right. Like it was so well done and just fit perfectly and seamlessly, and it was like it always existed. It was impressive.
Yeah, that's a very high praise, and I think it deserves it.
Yeah.
And again, I know this is the Mandalorian episode review, but when you're dealing with, again, primarily of that, one of the things that really made it work was the lack of space fighting, and it was more grounded. And I keep going back to, even though in Mandalorian, again, some of the best space, and again, here's the thing, maybe it's not space fighting in Mandalorian, because a lot of their fighting is in atmosphere. So it's basically dog fighting with gravity, with a certain weight and speed to it. Because again, Lucas kind of, drove it into the ground where you just see, lasers in space. They shouldn't have called it Star Wars. They should have just called it lasers in space, because that's all you kept seeing were lasers. But when, again, I think I mentioned this when we first started watching the Razor Crest fight, flying in the clouds, that gave it a whole new sense of danger and gravity, because you see ground, you see they can crash, you see, they're banking, they're going through chasms and things like that. I think that's, one of the things that give you that sense of realness, and it's less CG, quite frankly, which, if done poorly, it does take you out of the episode. I do get a little put off by some of the sets in Mandalorian. Not that they're bad sets, but they're just sets. And I'm sorry, episode 4. And again, let me put this like this, Logan. Episode 4, when they go into the cantina, to me that was a cantina, and I don't know what I might have to go back and look at the difference of it, but that cantina rang so true to me when you compare it to the let's say, for example, the pit fighting of the Gamorrean guards. And I know they're basically the same sets, but one just rang truer to me than the other. And I don't know what it is. I might have
cinematography.
It could be. It could be. It could be because we're shooting digital now. Back then we were shooting on film. So that could be literally just the filter they put on it.
Well, so many of these sets too, and I'm looking at Christmas Day. I think it's supposed to come out. They're going to do a release. I think just a single episode this time of their kind of gallery series about kind of the behind the scenes making of episode or season 2 of The Mandalorian.
You mentioned that for the first one, right?
Yeah. Oh, the first one has, I want to say, 6 episodes maybe, and to just see how they do it, both takes away the magic and puts you in awe of the magic. It's incredible. I will say by the end of the season, I've kind of stopped looking at what I saw from that series. So I've gotten that kind of magic back, which is nice. But yeah, Christmas Day, I think they're supposed to come out with another one looking at season 2. And to just get a sense of where they've taken that technology, some of which they talked about on the investor preview that Disney had just recently on their Star Wars section. But it's just astonishing to the digital scenes and scenarios they can go ahead and create and locations they can go to all on this one stage. And I think being able to have a cantina where they have more of that, original episodes kind of nostalgia to it, I think is already going to put you more into it than, an alien boxing ring, for lack of a better term.
True. And again, I don't want to get too critical because I appreciate that it is grounded, and I don't want them making everything like the prequels were, where everything's literally a blue screen and these epic halls that don't exist. Obviously, one of the things that made the first episodes 4, 5, and 6 so astonishing is a lot of those backgrounds were hand painted. They weren't CG. They didn't have CG. They didn't have computers.
I'm sure you didn't notice it because I didn't notice it, but did you notice the stop motion cinematography in this episode?
Let me ask you that. Was that in regards to the actual transport that was? No, what?
So they brought back, and I only know this because of a friend on Facebook, actually, who he's done a bunch of independent kind of documentaries, and he actually won an award for one of his Star Wars fan films. But he pointed this out, that they brought back an individual by the name of Phil Tippett, who did the original stop motion animation for the original Star Wars trilogy of the kind of the, what would you call them, the AT-AT, the AT-AT walkers.
Wow.
And they brought him back to do that for the opening scene where you have that kind of scrap walker. So if you remember, it was the 4-legged walker with the hook that was picking up the Imperial ships and stuff for scrapping. That was actually done by the original person who did the original stop motion work on the Star Wars trilogy.
I got to go back and look at that. No, that's amazing.
Just fit in so perfectly and so beautifully and so authentically. Being Star Wars fans and having seen that stuff in Star Wars, it was just as it should be. It was incredible. And I think being able to marry that kind of, truly, truly old school work with this modern, huge digital background, it's a video game engine that renders all these scenes on wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-ceiling cameras so that you get the actual proper lighting of everything that's going on at the same time. The old school and new school they've been able to marry in this is just an absolute masterclass in what cinematography and stuff can be, and it's incredible for that if not the whole rest of the story by itself.
That's an excellent point. I did not know. I'm gonna have to go back and check that. I will say that the AT-ATs in Empire Strikes Back, again, everything is iconic, and when you're first seeing these things for the first time, it's cemented in your brain, and just the scale of it was insane. And I think stop motion, especially back in that time, back in the early 80s, was late. That was late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, when Empire Strikes Back came out.
Yeah.
That, I think, was some of the best stop motion ever, because before then, we're talking Jason and the Argonauts, or
I would have said Thunderbirds, but yeah, that's fine too.
Yeah, or you know what else had some good stop motion? It's Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans, yes.
Yeah, and that, just where they tried to marry the two together. And again, that kind of was Jason and the Argonauts, but just for a new generation.
Yeah.
Again, just going into too much cinema talk. But Eric, what are your thoughts on like the sets and the effects? Is it because I think Logan kind of convinced me that he's right and I was wrong, that yes, the sets are good. I guess I'm being hypercritical, but I want your thoughts, Eric. What are your thoughts on like the overall set design and effects, especially the marrying of different types of effects?
Oh, geez. Yeah, no, now that you mention it, Julian, there are some sets that really do not look good. First, I'll say that when they're shooting him in the landscapes, like the kind of like the Tatooine type look with some cliffs in the background and stuff like that, that looks fantastic. I mean, they just totally nail that stuff. But when they get into some of the towns that they go through, they look kind of terrible sometimes. I felt like in episode 7, when they went into the Empire's break room, I guess, if you will, I thought that looked fine. I thought that looked like what I would expect from a defeated Empire's lunchroom. That looked fine. The interiors of the ships, I feel they look great. No problems there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess, if you think about the movies that you've seen, a lot of the times these dusty main streets, if you will, of the Wild Wild West, they're either using an existing set from a prior production that they spent a lot of money on, or maybe they're like the type of they're Universal, and they already have some of these sets built, and they just have to put a different coat of paint on it, or put this rock over there. And anyway, they spend a lot more money like developing these sets. Not that Disney's broke or anything like that, but yeah, it looks cheesy. Some of them look kind of cheesy. The futuristic downtown.
You know what? And I think you might have pointed out what was sticking with me. And it's not necessarily that they're bad. Let me rephrase this. I would say that it's jarring, the difference between the two. And here's a perfect example.
Good point.
The ships, yes, they're sterile, they're monochromatic, they're metal, and some of the cantinas look great. And actually, they just look like they're in different films, if I can. And I'll say this, here's a perfect example. In episode, I think it was 5, where they were in the lava trench, when they did when they were going down below. That was obviously a set because they didn't have, I guess, that location down in the trenches. And it was either a CG trench or there was like a set where they were at the door. The sets, it doesn't trick my eye. However, like in episode 4, when where was that shot, Logan, in Tunisia or Morocco? Where Luke's ranch was. but that was on location. So if it's like a Hollywood set, or you just get the feel that this is a real place. And again, some places are so foreign, there is no area that looks like that. So you have to invent it, and it just looks invented, not bad, just different. And it seems like it's in a different episode, because you go from like a rainforest to an ice cabinet, and I can't fault them for it.
I mean, you realize that you're watching at that moment. You realize you're watching a TV show. You're not watching Blade Runner on the big screen. We
got to talk about Blade Runner.
That's all I'll say.
don't get me started on Blade Runner. That you talk about the piece resistance. I mean, Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah.
And Dune is coming out soon. That is going to be ridiculous. So I don't want to get off the beaten track, but where was that located, Logan? I saw you typing stuff.
I am typing, and that's because I don't believe the majority of Mandalorian was filmed on any kind of location.
Really?
Well,
because I remember we were talking about when you first said they showed. Remember when I was talking about how they were doing the dragon, the one with the dragon, where they were going on that, and you said that was actually all CG. Was that correct? I think
so.
You said that.
See, that's the thing, and that's why it's so hard to know. The stage that I'm referring to, you have to kind of see to believe, in that it is essentially wall to wall, completely circular, completely covered, all ultra high definition TV screens.
I get that. Yeah.
There is any location that you want anywhere in there. So if it's not done up to spec, that's just the realistics, the ability of the artist to create that particular virtual environment, and being able to, obviously there is a legitimate floor that you can put sand or put rocks or put whatever kind of in and on. But it's and the inability of the post-processing department, I guess, if you will, to marry those realistic floor settings with the wall and ceiling of the digital virtual effects that actually exist. So, to be honest, I don't know that it's filmed many other places than its studios in California. I don't.
Well, there are some. And again, I will have to check out that special you're talking about, where they show the actual. And again, I even mentioned where in Tom Cruise's film, and the name's escaping me. It was sci-fi. Tom Cruise. It was not. It wasn't Interstellar, but it was very close to that. And
some of that initial. I think it was in Death Valley. Oblivion,
it was Oblivion. But to that point, they had a set where it was probably like 5 stories high.
Yeah.
And it was all digital projection. So when they're in their place and you're looking out the window, they're looking at a projection. So they get that actual lighting. It's kind of like a natural light. And I can definitely see that with Disney. I'm sure they have that budget.
Yeah.
But to that point, maybe that's again it, Logan, where you're going from an expansive backdrop that looks phenomenal, and then they're at a door and it looks like paper mache rock. And maybe that's the thing. Not again, it's and I hate to say this, don't take this personal, Logan, but it looked a little Star Trek-y circa 1968. When they're at the door and it looked, because again, I'm sure there were scenes like when they were in the desert, but it is what it is. And anyway, though, I like the effects. On occasion, I'm taken out of it, but not to the point where it detracts from the overall quality of the series. Yeah. Again, these are nitpicks, which is a good thing to complain about. It's not like I'm saying,
look, if this is the biggest thing we're complaining about, the series is doing great.
Yes, the lighting was horrible. Yes, there you go. I said it. Yeah, I said it. Anyway, guys, this is an episode. One more episode to go.
Yeah.
So this is the season finale coming up next. But again, I think we've been on a great journey so far, and I'm really curious to see what everybody says for episode 8. I'm sure it's going to be a great discussion. We actually have a guest participant in the next episode, so be sure and stay tuned for that. Gentlemen, any last things before we wrap this up? Any projects you're looking in? Any binging you're doing outside of The Mandalorian? Because we have been very Mandalorian centric, but there's a whole world out there, so I hear. And if there's anything else you're doing out there, love to hear it and share it with the viewers at home.
No, I mean, I've been keeping up. Again, this winter or leading into winter has pretty much been Mandalorian and Star Trek Discovery season 3. So that's all I got.
Eric, anything you're working on other than viewing Mandalorian and listening to your fiance get all upset about Baby Yoda?
I've lately been watching a couple football games, some really good football games on between the Ravens and the Browns, and then last night the Chargers and the Raiders. Those are 2 really good games. And then when the games are on, those are kind of like my nights to watch the TV, and then the other nights I have to give them to my fiance. Otherwise, there's chaos in here. So on the off nights, we have been watching the Christmas baking challenge, I guess. It's like the Great British Baking Show, but the Christmas edition. So we watched 2 episodes of that. So that's always fun because, I mean, who doesn't like to see cakes and cookies? And it's great.
Yeah, no, I can't watch that stuff. Not for lack of appreciation, but an over appreciation of cakes and things like that. Yeah, it's temptation I don't need in my life.
Very good.
I have been,
Me neither.
I'm trying to stay away from all that.
How about yourself, Julian? What have you been watching?
I've been trying to catch up on some Netflix. Nothing too crazy that's out there. I mean, they came out with Ava, which is pretty good. That's with Jessica Chastain. There's a new series that just came out called 999 that I might watch. I've been trying to get into a lot of these. They're actually either Spanish original drama series or like German. There are a lot of foreign films that Netflix series that Netflix has acquired and then bring over and then horribly dub it. I mean, it's the worst dubbing since Kung Fu Theater back in the 80s, where it was, it was horrible dubbing, but interesting stories. And I always appreciate a culture outside of ours and their storytelling ability. It just it breathes fresh air into storytelling. So and again in 2020, what's that? Subura, no. Okay. I'll add that to the list. Speaking of list, in 2021 we are going to be expanding, growing, reaching out to all different genres, movie reviews. We're going to be doing, fun, games, things like that, having different shows. So this has been, a great year. And again, now that I'm thinking about it, our next episode will probably be the last episode of the year. So happy 2020, gentlemen. We've made it. Almost.
We survived.
Almost. Don't jinx it. You don't know what's.
Yeah.
Why am I getting a Seacrest feeling? Not a Seacrest, a Razor Crest feeling. We're about to get on the ship. Right. All of a sudden, out of the sky, boom. But anyway, no, this has been a great year, and going into this episode has been so informative and just a great respite from all the things that are out there. I'm really looking forward to expanding it with you guys, and we're going to be bringing in some new people as well to broaden our Binge family, if you will. Anyway, everybody out there, we want to thank you so much for participating in these episodes. We want you to like, share, and subscribe, spread the word, share the posts, do what you can to help us, get bigger, stronger, faster. Remember to take care of each other. Remember to take care of yourselves. And especially if it's worthwhile, it's worth binging.